The desert highway stretched like a black ribbon under the moonless sky, the kind of road that swallowed sounds and spat out echoes. Headlights from a distant convoy pierced the darkness, engines rumbling like thunder in the distance. It was just past midnight, the air thick with the scent of sagebrush and cooling asphalt, when the impossible happened. A small figure burst from the shadows at the roadside, a boy no more than 8, his face streaked with tears and dirt, clothes torn at the edges. He darted straight into the path of the oncoming bikes, arms flailing, voice cracking in a desperate plea. "Please, follow me, you have to help." The lead rider, Ethan Hale, slammed on his brakes, tires screeching as the convoy ground to a halt in a chorus of revving engines and cursing shouts. 50 bikes idled now, their chrome gleaming faintly, a wall of leather-clad guardians suddenly frozen by the sight of this child, wild-eyed and trembling, pointing back toward the barren scrubland. Ethan killed his engine first, swinging his leg over the Harley with the ease of a man who'd ridden these roads for decades. At 45, he was built like the bike itself, solid, scarred, with a salt and pepper beard, framing eyes that had seen too much. The patch on his vest read, "Iron Vow," the emblem of his club, a promise forged in the fires of old wars and older regrets. He knelt to the boy's level, gloved hands gentle on the kid's shoulders. "Easy, little man. What's got you out here alone?" The boy clutched at Ethan's arm, sobs hitching. "My sister. They're hurting her. Back there in the old mill. Please, mister, you gotta come quick," the convoy murmured, riders exchanging glances. Veterans like Marcus, with his prosthetic leg from a forgotten conflict, and young Jax, you fresh-faced but loyal to the bone. Ethan felt that old pull, the one that had drawn him back to the club after years of drifting. A promise he'd made long ago to a brother in arms lost in the sands of some distant desert. Protect the innocent, no matter the cost. He'd buried that vow under layers of isolation, but here it was, clawing its way out. "All right," he said, voice steady as steel. "We're with you. Lead the way." As the boy scrambled ahead, the engines roared to life again, a thunderous pledge that this night would bind them all in ways none could foresee. They followed the child's frantic path off the highway, dust kicking up in plumes that caught the moonlight like ghosts. The old mill loomed ahead, a skeletal ruin of rusted beams and shattered windows, abandoned since the boomtown days. Ethan signaled the convoy to fan out, bikes circling the perimeter with tactical precision, habits from patrols that never quite faded. The boy pointed to a side entrance, half hidden by tumbleweeds. "In there! Hurry!" Ethan dismounted, pulling a flashlight from his saddlebag. The beam cut through the gloom, revealing scuffed footprints and what looked like drag marks in the dirt. His gut twisted. This wasn't just some kid's nightmare. Marcus joined him, shotgun slung low. "Boss, this smells off. We calling it in?" Ethan shook his head. "Not yet. Let's see what we're walking into." They pushed through the creaking door, the air inside stale and heavy with the tang of rust and fear. The boy stuck close, whispering, "She's in the back room. They took her 'cause of Dad's debt or something. Mean men with tattoos." Deeper in, the mill opened into a cavernous space, moonlight filtering through cracks in the roof like silver veins. Shadows danced as the bikers fanned out, boots echoing softly. Ethan heard it then, a muffled cry, faint but urgent, from behind a makeshift wall of crates. He motioned for silence, heart pounding with the weight of that long-ago oath. The club wasn't just riders. They were a family, pieced together from broken parts, bound by loyalty that outlasted blood. They rounded the crates, and the scene hit like a gut punch. A girl, maybe 10, huddled in the corner, wrists bound with rough cord, her face bruised but eyes fierce. 2 figures loomed over her, rough types, faces hidden in hoods, arguing in low tones about the boss and payment. One turned, spotting the intruders, and lunged for a crowbar. Ethan moved like lightning, tackling the man to the ground with a crack of bone on concrete. Marcus had the other pinned in seconds. The club's quiet efficiency turning the tide without a shot fired. The girl scrambled free as Jax cut her bonds, wrapping her in his jacket. "It's okay, kid. You're safe now." But the boy froze, staring at his sister. "Where's Mom?" he whispered. The girl shook her head, tears spilling. They took her earlier, said she'd pay for everything." Ethan's blood ran cold. This wasn't random. It was a web, tangled in debts and shadows that reached further than this mill. He radioed the convoy. "Secure the site. We're not leaving till we know the full story." As the first aid kits came out and the kids were bundled onto bikes for warmth, Ethan felt the promise ignite fully. He'd walked away from too many fights, let too many ghosts haunt him. But tonight, with the desert wind whispering through the ruins, he knew this ride would demand everything and forge the iron vow anew. The questions burned as they waited for dawn. Who were these men? What debt chained a family like this? And where was the mother? The bikers stood vigil, engines humming low, a circle of steel around fragile lives. Ethan lit a cigarette, the flame flickering in his scarred hand, remembering the letter from his fallen brother. "Keep the fire, Ethan, for those who can't." He exhaled smoke into the night, resolve hardening. This was just the beginning. The truth they uncovered would test every bond, every scar, and redefine what family meant under these endless stars. Dawn crept over the horizon like a reluctant witness, painting the desert in hues of bruised purple and fading gold. The old mill stood sentinel in the growing light, its rusted frame groaning under the weight of secrets unearthed. Ethan Hale paced the perimeter, his boots crunching on gravel that still held the chill of night. The air smelled of dew-kissed dust and the faint, acrid bite of fear sweat from the siblings now huddled on a blanket spread across the tailgate of Marcus's truck. The boy, who they'd learned was named Liam, clutched his sister, Sarah's hand, their faces pale masks of exhaustion and unspoken dread. The two men from the mill sat zip-tied against a beam, heads bowed, the fight drained from them like air from a punctured tire. Ethan had insisted on no rough handling. The iron vow didn't traffic in vengeance, only truth. Jax knelt nearby, offering water from a canteen, his voice soft as he coaxed details from the kids. "Your mum's name? Anything you can tell us about where they might have taken her?" Sarah's eyes, sharp despite the shadows under them, flicked to the captives. "They called her by name, Elena. Said something about the warehouse by the river where Dad used to work, before he was gone." Ethan's jaw tightened at the mention of the father. Debts like this didn't sprout from nothing. They were weeds choking families rooted in loss. He remembered his own ghosts, a brother lost to the same kind of shadows, a promise whispered over a hospital bed. "Watch out for the ones left behind, Ethan. Don't let the world grind them down." He'd failed that vow once, walking away after the funeral, letting the club fade into memory. But the road had a way of circling back, and now, with these kids' eyes on him, failure wasn't an option. Marcus approached, his prosthetic leg whispering against the dirt, a satellite phone in hand. "Called in a favor with an old contact, ranger up in the county seat. No official reports on a missing woman last night, but there's chatter about a crew running collections out of that river warehouse. Shady outfit, tied to some bigger fish. Corrupt badgers might be in the mix." He glanced at the siblings, lowering his voice. "We ride in blind, we could spook 'em, lose her for good." The convoy stirred as the sun breached the hills, engines coughing to life like weary soldiers. Riders gathered in a loose circle, vests patched with the iron vow emblem, a clenched fist around a broken chain, gleaming in the light. Christopher, the club's medic with hands steady from years patching up battlefield wounds, checked Sarah's bruises, applying salve with gentle precision. "No breaks, kiddo, but rest up, we've got your back." Nearby, young Tyler fiddled with a drone from his pack, its props humming faintly as he tested the range. "Could scout the warehouse from the air, boss. Get eyes without tipping our hand." Ethan nodded, the weight of command settling like an old saddle. At 45, he'd led patrols in hotter sands than this, but those were orders from above. This was personal, a thread pulling at the frayed edges of his soul. He knelt by Liam, the boy's small frame shivering despite the warming air. "You were brave last night, running into the road like that. Saved your sister." Liam's gaze dropped to the ground, fingers twisting the hem of his torn shirt. "I heard them yelling at Mom, said if Dad didn't pay, they'd take us all. But Dad, he disappeared weeks ago, left a note saying sorry." The word sorry hung in the air, heavy as the mill's shadows. Ethan placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, feeling the fragility beneath. "Debts end with truth, not chains. We're gonna find her and figure out what happened to your dad." It was more than words. It was the vow reigniting, binding the club in silent accord. The riders murmured agreement, a chorus of low voices weaving loyalty into the morning breeze. They loaded up, the siblings secured in the truck with Christopher riding shotgun. The bikes formed a protective phalanx, dust trails marking their path back to the highway. Ethan led, wind whipping his beard, the roar of Harleys drowning out doubt. The river wasn't far, an hour's ride through scrubland dotted with Joshua trees, their twisted arms like accusatory fingers. As they crested a rise, the warehouse came into view, a squat concrete beast squatting by the muddy water, chain-link fence topped with barbed wire, a few vehicles parked haphazardly out front. Ethan signaled a pull-off, the convoy halting in a copse of mesquite for cover. Tyler launched the drone, its whir fading into the sky as the feed linked to a tablet in Marcus's grip. The screen flickered to life, revealing guards patrolling the perimeter, rough men with vests not unlike their own, but stained with something darker. Inside, through a cracked loading door, shadows moved, crates stacked high. And there, a woman, bound to a chair in what looked like an office, her head slumped, but rising at voices off-screen. "That's her," Sarah whispered from the truck, pointing with a trembling finger. "Mom." Ethan's pulse quickened, the image searing into his mind. But then the feed caught something else. A figure in the background, barking orders, face obscured, but billed familiar in a way that twisted Ethan's gut. Tattoos snaking up an arm. Marks from a unit he'd known, brothers who'd turned after the war, chasing easy scores over honor. "Stand down," Ethan radioed, voice edged with steel. "We plan this right, or we lose everything." The drone hovered, capturing more. Documents scattered on a desk, hints of ledgers and names. One caught the lens, something about iron debts and a signature that blurred but screamed betrayal. Marcus cursed under his breath. "This ties back further than we thought. Your old outfit, Ethan? The ones who scattered after Issue 8? Ethan's scarred knuckles whitened on the handlebars. The promise to his fallen brother echoed louder now, tangled with regrets of friends lost to the wrong path. He'd walked away to forget, but the desert had a memory longer than time. "Doesn't matter. We go in quiet, get Elena out, then unravel the rest." The club nodded, a family forged in fire, ready to ride into the heart of corruption. As the sun climbed higher, baking the earth, they prepped, tools checked, positions assigned. Tyler brought the drone back, its landing soft as a sigh. Liam watched from the truck, eyes wide with a mix of hope and fear. "You promise you'll bring her back?" Ethan met his gaze, the words of vow etched in the club's soul. "On my life, kid. Iron vow." The warehouse loomed closer in their minds, a fortress of lies waiting to crack. But as they mounted up, Ethan felt the first stir of doubt, not in the ride, but in the cost. Truths buried deep had a way of dragging the innocent under, and this web stretched shadows over them all. The engines revved, a thunderous heartbeat, carrying them toward a confrontation that would test every bond, every scar, and the very promise that defined them. The sun beat down on the convoy like a relentless interrogator, turning the air into a shimmering haze over the cracked earth. Ethan Hale gripped the handlebars of his Harley, the leather of his gloves creaking under the pressure as the group crested the final rise toward the river. The warehouse squatted against the horizon, its concrete walls scarred by years of neglect and illicit use, the river's muddy flow a sluggish vein beside it. Faint echoes of water lapping against pilings mixed with the low growl of idling engines, a deceptive calm before the storm. Ethan scanned the terrain through mirrored shades, his mind mapping escape routes and weak points, instincts honed in distant dunes where trust was a luxury few could afford. Marcus rode flank, his face a mask of focused calm, the satellite phone tucked into his vest like a talisman. Behind them, the truck carried Liam and Sarah, Christopher's steady presence an anchor for the kids' fraying nerves. Tyler's drone footage replayed in Ethan's thoughts, Elena's slumped form, the tattoos on that shadowy figure, marks from the 5th Recon Battalion, brothers who'd shared foxholes with him before the world twisted them into ghosts of their former selves. Viper Squad, Ethan muttered to himself, the old call sign bitter on his tongue. He'd buried those memories after the discharge, after watching good men fracture under the weight of unspoken debts. But here it was, rising like dust from a fresh grave. They pulled into a shallow arroyo, a quarter-mile out, the bike sinking into soft sand that muffled their arrival. Ethan killed his engine, the sudden silence amplifying the distant hum of generators from the warehouse. 2 teams, he said, voice low as he gathered the riders in a tight huddle. Marcus, Jax, Tyler, you're with me on infill. Christopher, hold the perimeter with the rest. If it goes south, signal and pull back. No heroes. Nods rippled through the group, the iron vow patch on their backs, a silent oath. Jax, the youngest at 23, checked his multi-tool with hands that betrayed no tremor. He'd joined the club after losing his own family to a house fire, drawn by the promise of purpose in the roar of the road. Liam peered from the truck window, his small face etched with the kind of hope that teeters on desperation. You'll be careful, right, Mom? She always said promises are what keep us whole. Ethan's chest tightened, the boy's words echoing his brother's last breath. He ruffled Liam's hair, the gesture rough but tender. We keep ours, kid. Always. Sarah clutched a water bottle like a lifeline, her eyes mirroring the desert's vast emptiness. In that moment, Ethan saw his own scars reflected back, the ones from shrapnel and the deeper cuts of regret. This wasn't just a rescue, it was redemption's edge, sharp and unforgiving. The infill team moved out on foot, boots silent over the scrub, the sun's glare forcing them to stick to the shadows of jagged rocks. The air grew thicker near the river, carrying the metallic tang of stagnant water and oil slicks. Tyler led with a handheld scanner, its screen glowing faintly. No major heat signatures inside, but motion at the main gate. 2 guards, armed but sloppy, cigarettes dangling from lips. Ethan signaled a halt behind a rusted shipping container, its side emblazoned with faded warnings. Peering around the edge, he spotted Elena through a grimy window. Her wrists chafed red from ropes, head lifting as if sensing the shift in the wind. Beside her, the tattooed man paced, phone to his ear, voice carrying snippets. The old man's debt clears tonight. Yeah, the kids are handled. A surge of protective fury coursed through Ethan, but he tamped it down, remembering the vow. Justice through integrity, not rage. Marcus flanked left, drawing the guard's attention with a tossed pebble that clattered like distant gunfire. As they turned, Jax moved like a shadow, zip-tying one from behind, while Ethan subdued the other with a precise chokehold. Clean, no lasting harm. The warehouse door creaked open under Tyler's picks, the hinges protesting like a warning unheeded. Inside, the space unfolded in dim layers. Towering stacks of crates stamped with generic cargo labels, the air heavy with dust motes dancing in shafts of light. Footsteps echoed from the office ahead, muffled voices rising in argument. Ethan led, pistol holstered but ready, the weight of it a reminder of lines he wouldn't cross. They crept along a catwalk overlooking the main floor, where workers, hired muscle by their wary glances, hauled boxes under fluorescent buzz. Below, a ledger lay open on a workbench, pages fluttering. Entries of loans, enforcements, names crossed out like debts settled in blood. One page caught Ethan's eye. His brother's name, linked to a sum that explained the web's sprawl. The office door loomed, ajar just enough for a sliver of view. Elena sat straighter now, whispering urgently to her captor, "You don't have to do this. Whatever my husband owed, it's not worth this." The man, face coming into focus, a jagged scar across his cheek that Ethan recognized from basic training, laughed, low and hollow. "Debts like his? They bury families, Elena. Your man's ghost owes me more than money." Ethan's blood chilled. This was no stranger. Derek Voss, Viper's second-in-command, a man who'd saved Ethan's life once, only to vanish into the underbelly after discharge. The betrayal stung deeper than any wound, twisting the promise into a noose. They burst in synchronized, Marcus covering the door, Jax to Elena's side, slicing bonds with a knife. Tyler swept for threats, but Voss was faster, lunging for a draw with a glint of steel. Ethan tackled him mid-stride, the two crashing into a desk that splintered under their weight. Fists flew in a blur, Ethan's scarred knuckles connecting with Voss's jaw, but the man fought dirty, knee driving into Ethan's ribs with a crack that stole his breath. "Hale! You son of a! Thought you rode off into the sunset!" Voss spat blood, eyes wild with recognition's poison. Elena scrambled back, Jack shielding her as Christopher's voice crackled over the radio. "Perimeter's hot. Backup inbound. Get out now." Gunfire popped outside, distant but closing, the warehouse erupting into chaos. Workers scattered, shouts echoing off concrete. Ethan pinned Voss, forearm to throat, voice a gravelly demand. "What happened to the father? The debt, it's tied to us, isn't it?" Voss's laugh choked off into a wheeze. "Your brother's mess started it. He borrowed from the wrong shadows to cover unit debts. Your buddy disappeared to pay it off. Or so we thought. Too late now." An explosion rocked the building, not from bullets, but a crate igniting, flammables stored carelessly, flames licking up like vengeful spirits. Smoke billowed, acrid and choking, as Ethan hauled Voss up, cuffing him with zip ties. Elena clung to Jax, coughing, her face a map of relief and terror. "The kids, where are they?" But the radio screamed again, "Ambush at the truck! They're after the siblings!" Ethan's world narrowed to a pinpoint, the vow fracturing under the weight of what they'd unleashed. Voss's words hung like smoke. Too late. The truth wasn't just buried. It was booby-trapped, and the fire was spreading. They dragged Elena out, Voss in tow, the inferno roaring behind them as the team sprinted for the bikes. Alarms wailed in the distance, sirens, perhaps real law or the corrupt kind Voss ran with. Ethan mounted up, Elena behind him, her arms tight around his waist like a lifeline. The convoy reformed in the chaos, engines thundering to life. But the rear view mirrored flames, devouring the warehouse, secrets turning to ash. Liam and Sarah were safe for now, but the web tightened, pulling Ethan's past into the light. Redemption demanded sacrifice, and as bullets whined past, he wondered if honor's price would claim them all before dawn broke clean. The roar of engines drowned out the crackle of flames as the convoy tore away from the warehouse, dust and smoke billowing in their wake like a shroud over the unraveling night. Ethan Hale leaned into the wind, Eleanor's grip around his waist a desperate anchor, her breaths ragged against his back. The river blurred to their left, its dark waters churning under the moon's pale gaze. while bullets pinged off the rocky outcrops, harmless warnings from pursuers who knew the terrain better than strangers. Ahead, the truck swerved into view, Christopher at the wheel, his face grim through the dust-caked windshield. Liam and Sarah's silhouettes pressed against the rear window, small hands waving in frantic relief. "Form up!" Ethan barked into his radio, voice cutting through the static like a blade. The bikes tightened into a wedge, Marcus and Jax flanking the truck, their Harleys growling in protective rhythm. Tyler rode rear guard, weaving to draw fire, his shouts lost to the chaos. Voss, zip-tied and slung over Jax's spare seat like dead weight, mumbled curses, his scarred face twisted in the slipstream. The betrayal burned in Ethan's chest, hotter than the fire they'd left behind, a brother-in-arms turned predator, dragging innocence into his web. But questions could wait. Survival demanded focus, the desert road uncoiling like a serpent ready to strike. They pushed hard for 10 miles, the horizon swallowing the warehouse's glow, until the arroyo gave way to open flats. Sirens wailed closer now, a mix of blue lights flashing in the distance. County sheriffs or Vosses bought allies. Ethan signaled a hard right into a dry wash, the convoy plunging into shadow where boulders loomed like silent sentinels. Engines cut, the sudden hush amplifying heartbeats and the faint drip of cooling metal. Elena slid off the bike, legs buckling until Ethan steadied her, his gloved hand rough on her arm. "You're safe. Kids are too." Her eyes, shadowed with exhaustion, searched his face. "Who are you people? Why risk this for us?" Before he could answer, Christopher hopped from the truck, rifle slung low. "Ambush cleared, two tails shook, but they're circling back. We hole up here till dawn, then head for the safe house in Redstone." Liam tumbled out, barreling into Elena's arms with a sob that echoed off the rocks. Sarah followed, quieter, her gaze flicking to Voss, who slumped against a boulder under Marcus's watch. "He was there when they took Dad," she whispered, voice laced with the poison of recognition. "Said Dad owed for some old promise. Something about a war." Ethan's stomach knotted, the pieces slotting into a grim mosaic. He knelt by the family, the cool earth seeping through his jeans, the scent of sage sharp in the air. "Your husband, Elena's man, what was his name?" She hesitated, glancing at the kids, then met Ethan's eyes. Noah Grant. Worked construction after the service, but debts piled up. Said it was from covering for friends. Unit brothers who couldn't pay their way. The name hit like gravel under tires. Noah Grant, a face from grainy photos in Voss's ledger, linked to Ethan's old squad. Not just any debt. A chain forged in the sands of deployment, where favors turned to burdens, loyalty to leverage. Voss stirred, Marcus prodding him with a boot. "Spill it, Derek, the truth, or we leave you for the flames." The man's laugh was a rasp, blood crusting his lip. "Truth? Hale, you ghosted after the blast took your brother, left us to rot in that VA hellhole, scraping for scraps. Noah borrowed from the crew to bury his debts, ours, yours. When he vanished, we collected. Family's the price." Ethan's fist clenched, knuckles whitening, but he held back, the vow a tether against the rage. Violence solved nothing. It only echoed the corruption they fought. You twisted it. Innocents aren't collateral. Voss's eyes gleamed with fractured pride. "Promises break, Ethan. Yours did when you rode away." The words sliced deep, stirring ghosts Ethan had outrun for years. His brother, dying in that desert clinic, extracting the oath with bloodied fingers. "Hold the line for the ones who can't, brother. Family's what we build, not what we're born to." He'd failed then, drifting into isolation, the iron vow a faded tattoo on his soul. But these riders, Marcus with his unyielding gaze, Jax's quiet fire, Tyler's tech-savvy resolve, Christopher's healing hands, they were the family he'd chosen, pieced from scars like his own. And now this broken clan before him, bound by Noah's ghost, demanded he honor it fully. Dawn's first light fingered the wash, gilding the rocks in soft amber, the air warming with the promise of another scorching day. Christopher passed out rations, jerky and water from saddlebags, the simple act weaving normalcy into the tension. Liam munched silently, eyes on his mother, while Sarah sketched in the dirt with a stick, a crude map of the warehouse marking spots she'd overheard. There's a back room. Papers about Dad's unit. They said he faked it all to run. Elena pulled her close, whispering comforts, but doubt shadowed her face. If Noah's alive, why leave us? Ethan paced the perimeter, radio crackling with updates from a club contact in town. Whispers of a manhunt, Voss's crew mobilizing, corrupt threads reaching into local law. The ethical snare tightened. Hand Voss to the law, risk the kids in foster shadows, ride it out, invite war. His mind raced through dilemmas, each path a moral tightrope. Loyalty to the past clashed with justice for the present, redemption a distant mirage in the heat. Marcus joined him, prosthetic legs steady on the uneven ground. We end this at Redstone, confront the route, no more running. And as the sun crested, engines stirred to life once more, the convoy emerging from the wash like avengers from legend. Elena rode with Christopher, the kids secured, Voss trussed in the truck bed under guard. Ethan led, the road ahead shimmering, pulling them toward Redstone, a dusty outpost with a hidden garage that served as the club's nerve center. But as they rolled out, a dust plume rose on the horizon. More riders, not theirs. Voss's laugh echoed from the truck. Told you, too late. Bullets whined again, closer, forcing a swerve into scrubland. The chase reignited, hearts pounding with the thunder of pursuit, the truth a blade hovering over fragile bonds. In the heart of that flight, Ethan felt the vow solidify, unyielding as the desert itself. Sacrifices loomed, perhaps Noah's survival or worse, but honor demanded they face it. The family chosen expanded, encompassing the Grants in its iron embrace, racing toward a reckoning that would either redeem or shatter them all. If this chapter's tension has you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button. It helps spread these stories of loyalty and redemption far and wide. The dust-choked road to Redstone twisted like a vein through the parched Badlands, the convoy's engines a relentless growl that masked the pounding hearts beneath. Ethan Hale rode point, his Harley slicing the heat haze, sweat tracing paths down his back under the heavy vest. The sun hung high now, a merciless eye baking the earth into cracked mosaic, the air shimmering with mirages that played tricks on weary eyes. Behind him, the truck bounced over ruts, Elena's silhouette visible through the grimy rear window, her arms wrapped protectively around Liam and Sarah. Voss remained in the bed, trussed like a felled animal, his occasional mutters lost to the wind, taunts or truths, it didn't matter yet. The pursuit's dust plume lingered on the horizon, a serpent coiling but not striking, as if their hunters savored the chase. Marcus pulled alongside Ethan for a stretch, his bike steady despite the uneven terrain, prosthetic leg braced against the peg. Redstone's 10 miles out, garages fortified, cameras, reinforced doors. We lock down, dig into Voss. Ethan's nod was curt, his mind a storm of fragments. Noah Grant's name etched in that ledger, debts from the old unit twisting like barbed wire around innocence. He'd known Noah peripherally, a quiet supply clerk in Viper Squad, the kind who covered shifts without complaint, borrowing cash to send home when paychecks fell short. But how it snowballed into this nightmare, chaining a family to shadows, gnawed at him. The vow to his brother pulsed stronger, a reminder that silence bred corruption. Truth, however brutal, was the only cleaver. As Redstone emerged, a ramshackle town of faded signs and sun-bleached trailers huddled against red rock cliffs. The convoy eased into the outskirts. The club's garage squatted on the edge, a converted hangar with roll-up doors scarred by sandstorms. The iron vow emblem spray-painted bold above the entrance. Ethan signaled the halt, bikes filing in like soldiers to quarters, the truck nosing through last. Inside, the space opened into cool dimness, fluorescent strips buzzing to life, tools and crates stacked like battlements. Riders dismounted in a fluid hush, forming a perimeter as Christopher helped Elena and the kids down, their faces pale ghosts in the artificial light. Liam clung to his mother's leg, eyes darting to the shadows, while Sarah scanned the room with a wariness beyond her years. Is this safe? They always find us. Elena knelt, smoothing her daughter's hair, her voice a fragile thread. For now, yes, these men, they're keeping their word. Her gaze lifted to Ethan, gratitude mingling with questions, the faint scent of smoke still clinging to her clothes like her accusation. Ethan met it steadily, feeling the weight of unseen eyes, the club's inner circle, veterans who'd answered his call at dawn, now watching this fragile expansion of their fold. They secured Voss in a side room, a makeshift cell with chains bolted to the wall. Marcus standing guard with unblinking vigilance. Ethan faced the man through the bars, the air thick with the tang of oil and tension. Noah Grant, alive or ghost? And why the kids? Voss leaned back, chains rattling softly, his scarred cheek twitching in the dim bulb's glow. Alive, last I knew. Bolted after the loans turned sour, faked a disappearance to dodge us. Left Elena holding the bag, thinking he'd protect her by vanishing. But debts don't forget, Hale. We squeezed for leverage, figured the family'd draw him out. A smirk cracked his lips, bitter as desert brine. Your brother's IOU started the chain, post-war gambling, covering for the squad's vices. Noah fronted it all, loyal fool. When you rode off, we scavenged what we could. Ethan's fists balled at his sides. The revelation, a punch to the gut. His brother, lost to that roadside blast in '07, had carried secrets into the grave, debts from dice games in barracks, promises to square up that never materialized. Ethan had buried the guilt, but it festered, now poisoning this unrelated family through twisted threads. You preyed on loyalty, turned brothers against brothers. Voss's eyes hardened. The old camaraderie a faded echo. Survival's not pretty, you know that, walked away from us all. The words hung, a mirror to Ethan's regrets, forcing him to confront the vow's fragility. Redemption wasn't a solo ride, it demanded facing the fractures. Outside the cell, the garage hummed with purpose. Tyler hunched over a laptop, drone footage synced to club records, pulling threads from digital shadows. Got hits. Voss's crews tied to a shell outfit, desert ledger collections, fake fronts, corrupt payouts to local badges. Noah's last ping was a burner phone 2 weeks back, near the border. Christopher tended to the kids in the corner, bandaging minor scrapes from the escape, his medics calm, a balm. Rest easy. We've got stories of our own, lost ones we pulled back. Liam perked up slightly, curiosity piercing fear. Like superheroes. Jax chuckled from nearby, polishing his bike. More like stubborn uncles. We stick. Elena approached Ethan as the sun dipped, casting long shadows through high windows, the scent of cooling engines mingling with fresh coffee brewing on a hot plate. Noah. If he's out there, why not come home? The note said he was sorry, that we'd be better without him. Her voice cracked, the moral weight of abandonment pressing down. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, the gesture heavy with shared scars. Sometimes men run to protect what's left, but hiding's no promise. We'll find him, end this right. It was truth laced with doubt. The ethical bind tightened. Handing Voss to tainted law risked the Grants vanishing into the system, while vigilante pursuit blurred the line between justice and the corruption they despised. A radio crackled then, Tyler's voice urgent from the laptop. Incoming 3 vehicles, half-mile out, Voss's signal or worse. The garage tensed, riders grabbing gear in silent efficiency, the iron vow awakening like a beast roused. Ethan glanced at the family, their faces a mosaic of trust and terror, then at his crew, chosen kin bound by scars and oaths. Defend the line, no one touches them. Doors rattled as the first shots pinged off metal, sparks flying in the twilight. The confrontation erupted, bullets whining through the air, forcing splits and counters. Ethan fired back from cover, each report a thunderclap echoing his resolve. In the chaos, Voss's laugh filtered from the cell, a harbinger. Told you, web's wider. But as Jax dragged Eleanor and the kids to a back bunker, Liam's small hand gripped Ethan's sleeve. You promised. The words anchored him amid the storm, the vow a shield against the encroaching dark. Redstone's walls held, but the night deepened, pulling secrets from the earth like roots unwilling to yield. The truth about Noah loomed closer, a spectre demanding sacrifice, testing if honor could outlast the shadows chasing them all. The garage in Redstone shuddered under the barrage, bullets ricocheting off reinforced walls like angry hornets trapped in a storm. Ethan Hale ducked behind a stack of tool crates, the acrid scent of gunpowder mingling with the sharp tang of overheated metal, his breath steady despite the chaos clawing at his edges. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting erratic shadows that danced like specters across the concrete floor. Outside, engines revved in a guttural symphony, Voss's reinforcements, 3 blacked-out trucks circling the perimeter, their headlights slicing through the encroaching dusk like accusatory blades. Flank left, cover the door, Ethan shouted, his voice a gravel anchor amid the din. Marcus nodded from his position by the roll-up entrance, shotgun braced, his prosthetic leg planted firm as he returned fire with measured blasts that echoed the club's creed, precision over fury. Jax herded Elena and the kids deeper into the bunker, a reinforced alcove at the garage's rear, its door sealing with a heavy thud that muffled Sarah's muffled cry. Liam's wide eyes locked on Ethan through the closing gap, a silent plea hanging between them. The promise, unbroken, fueling the fight. Tyler crouched at the laptop station, fingers flying over keys as he jammed the attacker's comms, static bursts crackling through hidden speakers. 2 down, tires shredded on the lead truck, but they're dug in, calling for more. Christopher moved like a ghost between cover points, reloading with the calm of a man who'd stitched wounds under fire, his medic's kit slung low. The Iron Vow riders held the line, a tight-knit wall of leather and resolve, their vests marked by the fist and chain emblem that now seemed etched in firelight. This wasn't just defense, it was a stand for the fragile family they'd claimed, against shadows born of old betrayals. Ethan edged toward the side window, peering through bullet-pocked glass at the unfolding siege. The attackers, hardened men with vests bearing a faded Viper insignia, fanned out behind their vehicles, faces obscured by bandanas, movements coordinated like echoes of the squad they'd once been. One shouted orders, voice carrying over the fray. Voss knows you're in there. Hand him over, and the family's free. A lie, Ethan knew, laced with the corruption that had poisoned their ranks post-war. Debts didn't dissolve with trades, they multiplied, chaining the innocent tighter. From the cell, Voss's rasping laugh pierced the noise, chains rattling as he strained against his bonds. Hear that, Hale? Your ghosts are home. Noah's pulling strings, sent 'em to clean house. Ethan's pulse spiked, the name a thunderclap in his mind. He spun toward the cell door, Marcus covering his advance with suppressive fire that splintered a nearby crate. Bursting in, Ethan loomed over Voss, the man's scarred face illuminated by a swinging bulb, eyes gleaming with fractured triumph. "Noah? Spill it! Where is he?" Voss coughed, blood-flecked spittle on his lips, the air thick with sweat and defeat. "Border town, holed up in a cantina. Thinks he's a kingpin now. Laundering the old debts through fake shipments. Sent me to tie up loose ends, your brother's mess included. But you You were the loose thread he feared most. The revelation twisted like a knife, reshaping the web. Noah Grant, not a victim, but a survivor who'd twisted survival into predation, using the family's peril as bait to draw out old enemies like Ethan. Loyalty, once a squad bond, had curdled into leverage, the promise Ethan held sacred, now a noose around them all. He left them to rot. For what? Power? Ethan's voice was low thunder, fists clenched but unmoving, the vow demanding truth over vengeance. Voss's smirk faded, replaced by a hollow weariness. Wars break men different ways. He ran to save them, or so he tells himself, but debts, they own you. Gunfire intensified outside, a grenade's muffled boom shaking the foundations, dust sifting from the rafters like falling stars. Ethan cuffed Voss harder to the wall, securing him before rejoining the fray. The ethical storm raged in his chest. Pursue Noah, risk dragging the club into a border war with corrupt ties, abandon the hunt, leave the Grants forever shadowed by half-truths. Redemption flickered like the dying lights, demanding sacrifice, not just blood, but the illusions of the past. His brother's oath echoed, protect the innocent, build the family. These riders, this huddled clan, they were it now, worth the cost. Christopher's radio crackled, breach attempt, east side. Ethan sprinted, leaping over crates to reinforce the point, where Jax traded shots through a shattered panel. Bullets whined past, one grazing Ethan's arm in a hot sting that bloomed red but didn't slow him. He fired back, dropping a shadow in the dust, neutralized, not killed, the club's line unyielding. Elena's voice filtered from the bunker, urgent whispers to the kids, stay low, loves. Help's coming. But help was them, forged in the roar of engines and the grit of unbreaking word. As night deepened, the attackers faltered, their truck's engine coughing smoke from Tyler's sabotage, riders peeling back into the dark with frustrated curses. Silence fell gradual, broken only by the drip of water from a leaky pipe and the ragged breaths of the defenders. Ethan slumped against a wall, the garage a battlefield of spent shells and scorched marks, the air heavy with cordite and resolve. Marcus approached, clapping his shoulder. Held, but Noah's the head. Cut it, or it grows back. Ethan nodded, gaze drifting to the bunker. Emerging, Eleanor met him, Liam and Sarah at her sides, their small hands clasped in hers. We heard about Noah. If he's behind this, what now? The question hung, a moral crossroads under the buzzing lights. Ethan's scarred hand rested on his bike's handle, the metal cool and familiar. We ride for the truth, end the chain, for all of us. Dawn would bring the border push, a final confrontation where promises would clash like thunder. But as the family chosen gathered, sharing water and quiet words, Ethan felt the vow renew, iron strong against the gathering storm. Shadows lengthened, pulling them toward a reckoning too late for regrets, where honor's legacy would be written in dust and unyielding loyalty. The border town's cantina squatted under a bruised sky, its adobe walls cracked like old skin, neon sign flickering El Sol, in erratic pulses that mimicked a dying heartbeat. Ethan Hale eased his Harley to a stop in the gravel lot, the engine's rumble fading into the hush of evening, where the air hung heavy with the scent of sizzling chilies and distant rain. The convoy had thinned to essentials. Himself, Marcus, Jax, and Christopher, the rest holding Redstone against any tale. Elena and the kids waited in a safe motel up the line. Their trust a fragile flame Ethan carried like a torch. Voss's confession had lit the path here. Noah Grant holed up in this dust-choked outpost, weaving debts into an empire of shadows. Ethan dismounted, boots crunching on pebbles that whispered underfoot, his vest heavy with the iron vow patch, a fist clutching a chain, now a symbol of chains to be broken. At 45, The ride had etched deeper lines into his face, but the fire in his eyes burned steady, fueled by the promise to his fallen brother. Protect the innocent, forge the family. Noah's betrayal twisted that oath into a knot. A squad mate who'd vanished, not as victim but architect of the pain, chaining his own blood. Redemption demanded facing it, not fleeing, even if the cost carved new scars. Marcus flanked him, prosthetic leg steady on the uneven ground, shotgun concealed under his jacket. Quiet entry, no blaze of glory. Jax nodded, young eyes sharp, his loyalty a quiet anchor since joining after his own losses. Christopher scanned the lot, medic's kit at the ready, hands that healed now poised to preserve. They moved toward the cantina's swinging doors, the muffled strum of a guitar and low voices spilling out like smoke. Inside, the space unfolded in dim amber light, scarred wooden tables ringed by patrons nursing drinks, the bar a scarred oak island where a bartender polished glasses with mechanical rhythm. In the back corner, under a haze of cigar smoke, sat Noah Grant, thinner than Ethan remembered, face hollowed by years, but the eyes the same, haunted, calculating. Ethan approached slow, the floorboards creaking like old bones, the scent of tequila and sweat thickening the air. Noah looked up, fork pausing mid-bite over a plate of enchiladas, recognition dawning like a slow storm. "Hail, didn't think ghosts rode this far south." His voice was rough, edged with the desert's grit. But no fight, only weary resignation. The table held a ledger, pages yellowed, entries scrawled in faded ink, debts from the old unit, Noah's name woven through like a spider's thread. The bikers formed a loose circle, blocking exits without a word, their presence a wall of leather and resolve. Ethan pulled out a chair sitting opposite, the wood groaning under his weight. "Noah, Eleanor, the kids, they thought you were gone, buried under your sorry note." Noah's gaze dropped to the ledger, fingers tracing a line. His brother's IOU, the spark that ignited it all. Had to. Debts like these. They swallow families whole. After the service I covered for the squad. Your brother's gambling, Voss's habits, my own shortcuts to send money home. When it piled, I ran south. Built this to pay it off. Thought vanishing protected them. Voss twisted it, used the kids as bait to flush me out. Marcus leaned in from the shadows, voice low thunder. "Twisted? You let it fester? Innocence paid while you played kingpin?" Noah's laugh was hollow, echoing off the rafters, drawing wary glances from the bar. "Survival's a dirty word, brother. Wars don't end at discharge, they bleed into everything. I sent Voss to collect clean, but he went rogue, corrupt as the badges he bought." The moral weight settled like dust. Noah's eyes pleading for understanding, a man fractured by choices that echoed Ethan's own regrets, walking away after the loss, letting vows gather cobwebs. Ethan's scarred knuckles drummed the table, the rhythm steady as a heartbeat, memories flooding, shared patrols, Noah's quiet jokes in the foxhole, the bond of brothers under fire. "My brother made me promise. Hold the line for those who can't. You broke that for Elena and the kids, but it's not too late to mend it." Noah's face crumpled, the facade cracking like dry earth under rain. He slid the ledger across, pages flipping to reveal transfers, funds siphoned to shell accounts, ties to the corrupt crew unraveling in ink. "Take it. End the chain. I wired enough to clear the family's slate this morning, anonymous. Voss was the last loose end. Tell Elena, I'm sorry, truly. But I can't go back. Shadows like me poison the light." The cantina's door swung open then, a gust of hot wind carrying the whine of engines. Voss's remnants drawn by whispers or betrayal. Shouts erupted outside, glass shattering as a bottle flew through the window, flames licking the frame from a Molotov's kiss. Patrons scattered, chairs toppling in a cacophony of panic. Ethan surged up, signaling the team. Jax to the back exit, Christopher covering Noah. Bullets pinged off the bar, splintering wood into fragrant shards, the air turning acrid with gunpowder and fear. Ethan hauled Noah behind an overturned table, the man's hands trembling as he clutched a hidden pistol, not to fight, but surrender. "Go!" Noah urged, pressing a key into Ethan's palm, a safe deposit box in town, holding evidence to bury the operation. For them, for the promise. Marcus returned fire through the door, precise shots that disabled without killing, the club's ethic holding firm against the chaos. Jax burst back. "Clear! Trucks waiting!" They moved as one, Ethan supporting Noah, the ledger tucked under his arm like a holy text. Outside, the assault faltered under the biker's counter, tires slashed, engines stalled by Tyler's remote hacks from afar. Noah slumped against the cantina wall as sirens wailed in the distance. Real law this time, tipped by the club's network. "Ride free, Hale. Tell the kids their dad's a fool who loved them enough to let go." Ethan's throat tightened, the vow fulfilled in this bitter parting, a redemption not of reunion, but release. Noah raised his hands as shadows closed in, not resisting. His sacrifice the final link severed. The convoy roared north under starlit skies, the border fading like a bad dream, Eleanor and the kids waiting with wide-eyed relief at the motel. Ethan handed her the key and ledger, words sparse. "He's ending it. For you." Tears traced her cheeks, a mix of grief and gratitude, as Liam hugged her tight, Sarah's small hand finding Ethan's. The family chosen expanded in that quiet room, bonds forged in dust and fire, stronger than blood. Back on the road, Ethan rode with the wind, the desert whispering absolution. Promises survived, not unbroken but honored, loyalty's quiet power against corruption's roar. The iron vow thrummed in his chest, a legacy of sacrifice and honor, carrying them into dawn, where truths, too late or not, built futures unshadowed. The engines sang on, a hymn to the family that endured.